Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank the witness for being here today. Can you briefly describe the audit process at the EAC? Just kind of briefly describe how you go about doing that.
Sure. We do a risk assessment process to determine what we're going to audit. We have a couple different types of audits. So some of our work is mandated by law, and those are required audits that we do annually. We also have the HAVA audits, which we do that based on a risk-based approach to determine which states are audited. And then we have discretionary audit work. The discretionary audit work is often launched when there's a risk area that we see or like a complaint comes in. So for example, the testing and certification audit, we were getting additional complaints around that. So we launched an audit to describe it. So that's how we select an audit. Did you want me to also touch on the process? Or?
Yeah, because where I'm going to go is in HAVA funds.
Okay. So for the HAVA funds, we make a determination if we're going to do the audit internally or if we're going to hire a contracted independent public auditing firm or accounting firm in order to conduct that work. They select, we have a scope determined of how many or how much of the funds is going to be audited, and then that audit follows normal audit procedures.
So how many would you say were done?
So we have, let me pull up the numbers. We're currently have 5 ongoing audits that our an independent public accounting firm is conducting. With the conclusion of those 5 audits, all states and territories will have been audited once, at least. That was our goal, was to get there. The additional factors that impact whether we're auditing can be, if complaints come in, if something is raised from the grants team, we might highlight it for an additional audit, or if the findings are particularly significant.
So along with that, so what steps does the EAC take to, how do they respond to the audits?
EAC?
Yeah.
So EAC is the responsible party for working with the state in order to close recommendations. So they sort of act as an intermediary, as the one issuing the grants. So we or the audit firm would put out recommendations to the state for things to correct or findings. EEC would be the one that looks at whatever they return and determines closure on those recommendations.
So let me ask, and again, and probably some of my colleagues probably understand this process a little better than I do, but so when you make the recommendations, or you say that these are the things, who rectifies the things that you've identified as that are issues?
Yeah, that would be the state office that's responsible for receiving the grant money. So it can vary from state to state, but it would be the office within the specific state or territory that receives grant funds.
So what happens if they don't rectify?
The recommendation would remain open. I can say right now, typically states have been pretty good about closing those. Right now we have 8 open recommendations, 4 for the Northern Mariana Islands and 4 for Delaware. So
in a case where you have recommendations, what generally is the time frame that you see on average per state or territory that they rectify?
Typically, we like to see closure within 6 months, but we understand that in some cases, depending on what the recommendation is, that could take longer. But usually the target is 6 months. Otherwise, those are reported in our semi-annual report to Congress as open recommendations, open longer than 6 months.
So so how many you say are still on that have not been? Do you have some that still? You have 8. You said 5 ongoing investigations or audits right now.
So we have 5 audits, 7 that we plan to start within this fiscal year.
Okay. And then you have 8 that are ongoing, you said?
I'm sorry, we have 8 that we are expected by the end of the fiscal year. 2 HAVA audits have been issued this fiscal year, and then we plan to start 6 more. So we have quite a few that we're trying to do this year.
So let me ask you, are there any steps that the EAC should be taking that they are not taking in response to your audits?
I think the EAC generally has been responsive to our recommendations and working with the states in order to resolve those things. There are some areas where there could be improvement.
Could you maybe elaborate on what you think there could be improvement?
Sure. We've noticed that there could be opportunities for capacity building. Specifically, we saw that with the Northern Mariana Islands. They just didn't have the internal controls in place in order to receive those funds. They received them for the first time in 2020, so I think that's an area for improvement. Additionally, we've identified findings where the federal financial reports that are required to be submitted don't reconcile to the general ledger. That's an area where EAC oversight getting those federal reports, they could be checking things like that.
Okay. Well, listen, I want to thank the witness. Thank you for your time, and Mr. Chairman, I yield back.